Good evening and welcome to the Hairenik Media Newscast, bringing you the latest from the homeland and the diaspora. The Diaspora National Mobilization Conference was held April 11 to 12 in Paris, bringing together over 150 prominent intellectuals, political, public, and community figures from Armenia, Artsakh, and 26 diaspora countries. The conference examined the current state of Armenian diaspora relations amid ongoing challenges and shifting geopolitical realities, stressing the need for mobilization around Pan-Armenian priorities. It opened with remarks by ARF Bureau member Hovsepter Kevorkian. Welcoming addresses were delivered by His Holiness Karekin II, Catholicos of all Armenians, His Holiness Aram I, Catholicos of the Great House of Cilicia, Ashot Danielian, acting president of Artsakh and Speaker of Parliament, and ARF Bureau Representative Armen Rustamian. Throughout the two-day conference, panel discussions focused on different aspects of Armenia-diaspora relations and the diaspora's strategic role in addressing national challenges. After a four-point agenda, the conference adopted a declaration outlining key priorities and next steps. The conference emphasized the strategic role of the diaspora amid Armenia's growing security threats and the targeting of national identity, making Pan-Armenian mobilization around national agendas imperative. It called for a unified national agenda linking Armenia, Artsakh, and the diaspora. Priorities include strengthening Armenia's statehood and security and advancing Armenian genocide recognition and reparations. It stated that contrary to the policy pursued by Armenia's current authorities, the process of international recognition and reparations of the genocide remains imperative. The Artsakh issue remains on the agenda, with practical steps including the release of prisoners of war, protection of the rights of the people of Artsakh, international recognition of the right of collective return, safeguarding cultural heritage in occupied Artsakh, full support for Artsakh state structures, and protection of the civil rights and socioeconomic needs of displaced Armenians in Armenia. The conference highlighted national values and the Armenian Apostolic Church as key pillars of Armenian identity in the diaspora, stressing that identity is rooted in history, language, culture, and national values, with the Church serving as a spiritual anchor and cornerstone of Armenian identity. It called for unity around the Church and condemned actions targeting Armenian values and the Armenian Apostolic Church, urging coordinated efforts to defend national identity and strengthen solidarity around the Church. It also emphasized expanding educational, cultural, and spiritual programs across the diaspora to preserve Armenian identity across generations. On Armenia-diaspora relations, the conference expressed concern over Armenia's policies after the 44-day Artsakh War, subsequent wars, and the Exodus, which led to deep disappointment, despair, and growing disengagement among diaspora Armenians. It also criticized policies of division, neglect, and disregard toward the diaspora. It called for a strategic Armenia-diaspora partnership with stronger institutional ties, better integration of diaspora expertise into national programs, and a unified Armenia diaspora space across political, diplomatic, economic, scientific, cultural, informational, and security sectors. It also stressed the need to protect and develop Western Armenian as an endangered language and called for further discussions on expanding the diaspora's role in Armenia's governance and national decision-making within a constitutional framework. Addressing diaspora mobilization, the conference called for greater unification around national goals, modernization of diaspora structures and practices, closer cooperation between communities, and strengthening of collective potential. It also stressed the essential role of youth in diaspora reorganization. Key priorities include strengthening Armenians worldwide and the Republic of Armenia as two parts of one nation, supporting nation-state building, and advancing the Armenian cause and broader national objectives. The declaration concluded that in today's geopolitical conditions, the strength of the diaspora is directly tied to the strength of the homeland, and that Armenia, Artsakh, and the Armenian people share indivisible national interests. It rejected divisive approaches by the current Armenian authorities and called for coordinated Armenia diaspora cooperation as the only guarantee of strengthening the Armenian nation and ensuring the resilience of Armenian statehood. It stressed that all potential must serve national goals to ensure a safe and secure future for the Armenian people. The conference also urged Armenians worldwide to participate in upcoming parliamentary elections, including those in the diaspora, and called for a shift away from the current authorities' anti-national policies toward a national state-oriented course for Armenia's development. The Armenia Alliance unveiled its socioeconomic pre-election program, emphasizing social justice and prosperity. Presented by National Assembly Armenia Faction MP Artur Khachaturian and Faction Secretary Artsakh Minasyan, the program outlines plans for economic revival, focusing on industrial growth, agriculture, and social welfare. Khachaturian criticized the current economic reliance on services, retail, and mining, and pledged policies to reduce the national debt, revitalize industry, and support agriculture. Minasyan focused on addressing social inequality, proposing wage and pension adjustments aligned with inflation, a luxury tax on the wealthy, and support for vulnerable groups, including heating and electricity subsidies. The program also includes tax reforms, healthcare improvements, and the restoration of the Ministry of Agriculture to boost agricultural profitability, ensure food security, and improve the quality of life in rural areas. The Mother See of Holy Etchmiadzin issued a statement criticizing provisions on the Armenian Apostolic Church included in the ruling civil contract party's pre-election program. It described proposals on church reforms, statute changes, the removal of the Catholicos and new Catholicosal elections as a clear violation of Armenia's constitutional order, warning they undermine church self-governance and religious freedom. The Mother See accused the ruling party of an anti-church stance and interference in its internal affairs, stressing that the election of the Catholicos and church governance fall exclusively under ecclesiastical authority beyond political control. Separately, hundreds of young people from across the Armenian Apostolic Church dioceses made a pilgrimage to Holy Etchmiadzin, where Catholicos Karekin II welcomed them, gave his blessing, and highlighted their key role in the church and national life. Recent amendments to Armenia's electoral code ahead of the June 2026 elections have raised concerns over fair competition. The changes ban personal names and electoral block titles, affecting the Strong Armenia with Samvel Karapetyan bloc and forcing a name change just months before the vote. The International Observatory for Democracy in Armenia, IODA, has called for the suspension of the amendments, citing a lack of consultation with opposition parties and civil society and possible violations of Venice Commission guidelines. Critics also warn that new rules granting the Central Electoral Commission broad discretion over election observers based on vague political neutrality criteria could undermine trust in the electoral process. The Strong Armenia with Samvel Karapetyan alliance held a rally in Yerevan's Freedom Square ahead of upcoming elections. A message from Prime Ministerial candidate Samvel Karapetyan, currently under house arrest, was presented in which he criticized Nikol Pashinyan's government, accusing it of keeping the country in poverty, war, fear, and internal division, and calling for political change. Participants later marched to Republic Square, with organizers calling the event a key step in launching the alliance's campaign. Siranush Sahakyan, executive director of the Armenian Legal Center for Justice and Human Rights and representative of Armenian prisoners of war at the European Court of Human Rights, said relatives of detainees held in Azerbaijan have sent a letter to Armenian Foreign Minister Ararat Mirzoyan, Swiss Foreign Minister Ignazio Cassis, and International Committee of the Red Cross President Mirjana Spoljaric-Egger, calling for activation of the protecting power mechanism, citing the worsening conditions of those detained. The letter expresses concern over the closure of the International Committee of the Red Cross office in Azerbaijan, which it says has increased uncertainty over detainees' well-being, and urges Armenia to invite Switzerland to assume the protecting power role to safeguard the detainees' rights and dignity. It adds that at least 19 individuals are currently held in Baku, facing significant risks of violence and ill treatment, and calls for urgent international action to prevent further harm. Prosecutors have again denied the release of 18-year-old Davit Minasyan, a high school student arrested nearly 2 weeks ago following a confrontation with Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan during a Palm Sunday church service. He was detained after a clash with Pashinyan's bodyguard, later lost consciousness in custody, and was hospitalized in serious condition. Despite appeals from his defense team and Armenia's ombudswoman, prosecutors cited the ongoing investigation as a reason for rejecting his release. A protest outside the Prosecutor General's office calling for his release or a less restrictive preventative measure due to concerns over his health ended without a meeting, as Prosecutor General Karapetyan declined to engage with demonstrators. The Lemkin Institute of Genocide Prevention and Human Security has issued a statement criticizing recent developments in Armenia regarding the leadership of the Armenian Genocide Museum Institute. It raised concerns over what it described as political interference in an academic institution following the resignation of Director Edita Gzoyan, linking the case to broader issues of historical memory, academic freedom, and regional political pressures. The institute urged Armenian authorities to ensure the independence of institutions dedicated to genocide research and prevention. In its 2026 report, the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom recommended that the U.S. government place Turkey on the special watch list for severe violations of religious freedom. The report also highlights violations by Azerbaijan, focusing on the destruction of Armenian religious and cultural heritage in Artsakh. It says historic Armenian sites, including churches, cemeteries, and archaeological landmarks, are under increasing threat, with at least 8 structures destroyed and 10 others damaged, according to satellite imagery. It further raises concerns over Armenian prisoners in Baku, noting reports that they are being denied Bibles despite claims by Azerbaijani authorities that religious materials are allowed. The findings add to growing international criticism of Azerbaijan's handling of cultural heritage and religious rights, urging stronger international intervention to protect Armenian heritage and uphold prisoners' rights. Meanwhile, Azerbaijan is continuing to violate international obligations to protect cultural and religious heritage amid growing evidence of damage and destruction in occupied Artsakh. Reports cite the demolition of St. Hagop Church in Stepanakert, built in the mid-2000s and considered a significant spiritual site. They also point to the destruction of key cultural landmarks in the city, including the theatrical fountain near the Bahram Papazian State Drama Theater and the Motherhood Monument, both long-standing symbols of Stepanakert, along with damage to the Holy Mother of God Cathedral, where shattered windows indicate deliberate vandalism. Restricted access continues to prevent a full assessment of the condition of Armenian heritage sites. Observers warn these incidents reflect a broader, systematic pattern targeting Armenian cultural presence and are calling for urgent international action to prevent further loss. April 10, 1992 marks the Maragha Massacre, when Azerbaijani forces attacked the Armenian-populated village of Maragha in the Martakert region of Artsakh, brutally murdering nearly 100 civilians, including children, women, and the elderly. Many others were taken hostage, tortured, or remain unaccounted for. The atrocity is commemorated as a tragic episode of the conflict, with calls to remember the victims and continue demanding justice and accountability. It is also noted that Azerbaijan's campaign of ethnic cleansing did not end in 1992, but continued with the forced exodus of the Armenian population of Artsakh in 2023. Today, under the control of an authoritarian regime, the indigenous Armenians of Artsakh remain forcibly displaced from their ancestral homeland and are still prevented from returning. The Armenian National Committee of America Eastern Region held its inaugural Grassroots seminar in Watertown, Massachusetts, bringing together local leaders and activists from across the region. The seminar themes Reignite, Reengage, Reactivate focused on strengthening grassroots advocacy for the Armenian cause through training sessions, case studies, and workshops. Topics included countering Turkish and Azerbaijani disinformation, engaging elected officials, and increasing community participation in elections. Participants also developed advocacy strategies, identified key races, and discussed ways to boost voter turnout, with emphasis on the impact of local activism in driving national change, with a special focus on how grassroots efforts have shaped key initiatives like Armenian genocide recognition. On April 15, Armenian Americans and allies will gather on Capitol Hill for the annual Armenian Genocide Observance and a congressional briefing addressing the failure of the Armenia-Azerbaijan peace process to confront Turkey and Azerbaijan's crimes against the Armenian nation. The day begins with a 1 p.m. congressional briefing titled Peace Without Justice in the South Caucasus at the Cannon House Office Building, hosted by the Armenian National Committee of America, followed by the Armenian Genocide Congressional Commemoration at 6 p.m. at the Rayburn House Office Building, co-hosted by the ANCA and the Armenian Assembly of America in cooperation with the Congressional Armenian Caucus. The events will address ongoing humanitarian concerns, including the detention of Armenian prisoners of war, the forced displacement of Artsakh Armenians, and Azerbaijani territorial occupation, with calls for justice, hostage release, and protection of cultural heritage. The evening commemoration will feature speakers including retired senior State Department official Dr. Robert Grigoryan and international human rights lawyer Hairenik. And now we leave you with comments from Elizabeth Chouldjian, Director of Communications at the Armenian National Committee of America, recorded during the Diaspora National Mobilization Conference in Paris. Chouldjian participated in a panel on the diaspora's political agenda and its strategic role in addressing national challenges.
It is an incredible opportunity to spend the weekend with 150 devoted community leaders from across the world, from 25 countries, to talk about the issues that the diaspora is facing across the board, whether they're political issues, whether they are issues of maintaining our culture and our heritage, our commitment to our youth. And this has been a great opportunity to have those discussions over 4 different panels that focus on political, on the importance of our church and our communities, the importance of our cultural development, and of course looking forward to see how we can strengthen the diaspora and Armenian homeland ties. So the panel I was privileged to be a part of focused on the diaspora's political strategy, on how we can strengthen, of course, our community presence all around the world, and at the same time to be a supporter and a defender of Armenia's security, of Armenia's national interests. And as part of that, we talked quite a bit about the importance of international ANC work to secure the release of Armenian prisoners. We talked about the right of return of the people of Artsakh and how we can get true justice for the crime of genocide that was committed against them. We talked more broadly with regards to the Armenian genocide overall, a century of genocide, and what the efforts, now that we've seen countries around the world recognize that crime, what the next steps are to getting justice for that and to ensure that we don't see the continuation of that in the future. The panelists that were on part of my group included everyone from the Artsakh ombudsman, human rights defender, Yerevan to Giro Manoyan, who is, of course, the international HITAD executive director. We had Jonathan Spangenberg, who is a leader in Germany's Armenian community. And of course, we had Vahan Zanoyan, who brought together a vision on what the next steps are in strengthening the diaspora's both expertise and moving forward in terms of whether it's economic development, whether it's youth development, whether it's the political development.
That's all for tonight's broadcast. Thank you for watching Hairenik Media. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and X, and like, share, and subscribe for more updates. Good night.